Well, hello there and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside Out. I'm Brent West along with Jack Lord and Rodney West, and we will be Georgia Championship Wrestling. Well, actually, before Georgia Championship Wrestling, and we still are not for sure in 1944 it is called Georgia Championship Wrestling. But we're going to go with Paul Jones because we're going to start talking on the first Georgia Championship Wrestling video. We talked about Paul Jones, wrestler extraordinaire, gets into an automobile accident, kind of hurts his career a little bit, but he will finally on this video we will talk about him becoming a promoter in Atlanta, Georgia, and he was only the promoter in Atlanta, Georgia. As we look further into this, Fred Ward was the promoter in Marietta, Georgia, and in Dalton, Georgia during those times. Fred Ward was. So I found that very interesting as we go further in to the Georgia before Georgia Championship Wrestling Part 2. And Jack, we start in 1934.
In 1934, Orville Brown and Paul Jones wrestled to a draw in the main event at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium for Georgia Championship Wrestling promoter Henry Weber. In 1935, Leo Savage defeated Bill Middlecroft in two straight falls in the main event at Lowe's Grand Theater for Georgia Championship Wrestling promoter Henry Weber.
Now we're saying it's Georgia Championship Wrestling. I'm not for sure it was called Georgia Championship Wrestling yet, but Henry Weber must have been the promoter there for a very long period of time. Let's jump from 1935. Let's jump to 1943. There was matches, of course, in Georgia in between that time, but I mean, we could go on and talk about the 1930s for a long time. So let's go to 1943, where the promoter was changed from Charles Winthrop, which he took over at some point, to Sammy Friedman. It is not clear as how and why the promotion changed promoters. I will tell you this. I believe, I could be wrong about this. I have been wrong before. Now, Rodney on the other end, he had really never been wrong.
I'm glad that you finally realized that.
I believe the Houston promoter. I believe he had something to do with the changes of promoters in Georgia. Now, I could be wrong about that. Rodney, let's pick up 1943.
All right, well, these are some good names coming up. 1943 is Dorv Roche. Is that correct? All right. Anyway, defeated Tiny Keenan in the main event at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Also, Al Massey and Rudy Strongberg wrestled to a draw in a semi-main event, and Roland Kermeyer defeated Cowboy Electro. Also in 1943, it was Bob Crutchfield and Tiny Oxford wrestled to a draw in the main event at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium for Georgia Championship Wrestling, promoted by Sammy Friedman. And then on January the 7th, 1944, at Atlanta's Municipal Auditorium, Paul Jones beat Otto Santabel. Joe Vitale beat Al Galento. The Black Panther beat Jack Dillon. And I must say, and it doesn't say in here, but I just wonder if there was any leg slaps in any of those matches.
I don't think so.
Hey, I will tell you this: Cowboy Luther would later become the owner of Championship Wrestling in Florida. It was announced that Paul Jones would replace Sammy Friedman as a promoter of professional wrestling in Atlanta. It is unclear as to why Friedman stepped down, and Georgia Championship Wrestling was formed in Atlanta in 1944 by promoter Paul Jones, or at least ABC Booking. I believe that was formed in 1944. And here is a card that I believe is right before Paul Jones promotes his. That might be his first one. I believe it is his first one, isn't it, Jack?
Maybe. January 14th, 1944, Atlanta, Georgia, at the Municipal Auditorium. The Red Devil beat Otto Schnabel. That was a hard one. Al Galento drew with the Black Panther, and the Red Devil, substituted for Albert Mills, beat Jack Dillon.
And that was the first Paul Jones. It was the first promoted show by Paul Jones.
April the 15th, 1944, again Atlanta at the Municipal Auditorium. Purple Flash beat Elvira Snodgrass. Gladys Killam Gillum beat Rose Evans. Al Massey drew Don Lee. The NWA World Champion Wild Bill Longson beat the Red Devil, who was unmasked as Dick Levere. And then June 16th, 1944, again in Atlanta at the Municipal Auditorium, Jack Kelly drew with Jack Whitworth. Dick Levere beat Pedro Gomez. Cowboy Luttrell beat Al Massey. The NWA World Champion Bill Longston beat Duke Capilani. Then on the 29th of 1944, September, at the Municipal Auditorium again, Mae Young won a battle royal that also included Marie Laverne, Ann Miller, Nell Stewart, and Elvira Snodgrass. John Malden beat Bill Collins. Jack Winworth beat Al Massey by disqualification, and Dick Levere beat Wally Grebb. And then December the 29th, 1944, Babe Zaharas beat Wally Grebb. Chief Sanauke beat Cowboy Luttrell. Son Almonde and Tiny Oxford, Tiny Oxford, I'll get it right, beat Joe Estes and Joe Kirkland. Al Massey drew Jack Dillon. Chuck Harbin beat Dick Levere by disqualification.
Yeah, that was Charlie Harbin. Charlie Harbin beat Dick Levere.
Okay.
Now, wait a minute. Now, hold on now. Hold it. All right. What was the Chief's name again?
Let me look it up.
Chief?
Sananuke.
What did you call it?
Sananuke.
That's not what I get out of it.
Yeah, well, we don't use that language.
I call him, it looks like Chief Saul Nuki.
Charlie Harbin would later become.
I just wonder how he got his name. His mother was born. First thing he saw.
Only Rodney would do that. But anyway, Charlie Harbin would become the one of the promoters in Georgia Championship Wrestling later on. By the way, these are they ran wrestling every week. It was every week. But we even want to go through all those because we would be here for a lifetime going through those matches. Plus, a lot of the people probably at this point don't know who they are, but you probably need to know who some of these wrestlers are. And if you don't know who Mae Young is, you probably haven't been watching wrestling the last 20 years or however long she was getting beat up on WWF television. All right, Rodney, let's start with January 12th, 1940.
All right, back in Atlanta at Municipal Auditorium, it's Jack Whitworth beating Ben Benacasa by disqualification. It's Babe Zaharas beating Charlie Harbin, and then it's Chief, one of my favorite names, Sanuki, beating Cowboy Luttrell. It's Al Massey beats Jack Dillon, and Mildred Burke beats Mae Young. Was that the main event, Mae Young and Mildred Burke?
I believe it could have been, yes.
It was awesome. And then, women did, I guess, get on the main event.
Well, and during that time period, Mildred Burke was the world's women's champion.
Yep. All right. Then on April the 13th, 1945, back in Atlanta at Municipal Auditorium, this card is, I believe, canceled by Paul Jones because President Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt, passed away at his home in Warm Springs, Georgia, one day earlier at the age of 63. The next card comes up on August the 24th, 1945, and it's at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Mae Young beats Evelyn Wall. Violet Valentine beat Neil Stewart. Danny O'Connor and Bart Hill beat Dick Lever and Jack Hader, and Herb Welch beat Red Roberts.
Wouldn't he? Is he the same as Rowdy Red Roberts years later?
I believe so.
All right, there we go. All right, Jack. Now we're going to jump to October 5th, 1945.
Atlanta, Georgia again. Wally Grebb beat Francis Baugh. Roy Welch beat Jack Kelly by DQ. Abe Zonkin beat Charlie Harbin. Lou Plummer drew with Al Massey. And the NWA champion Bill Longston beat Bartow Hill. And then February the 2nd, 1946, Tarzan White beat Ben Benacasa by DQ. Dick Revere beat Ralph Garibaldi. Al Massey beat Bob Godfrey. Herb Welch and Jack Welch drew with Jack LaRue and Vic Emanuel. And then September the 13th, 1946, Al Massey and Nick Carter beat Don Lee and Jack Hayter. Bibber McCoy beat Curtis Knack. Tom Mahoney beat Joe Marsh. And the French Angel beat Jim Cofield by disqualification.
And stay tuned, because we're going to show some photographs of some of these wrestlers that we're talking about. And the French Angel is one of them. And so, Rodney, now we go September 27th, 1946.
Yeah, back at Atlanta Municipal Auditorium, it's Don McIntyre beating Tom Mahoney. Ray Vilmer draws with Bibber McCoy. That's another great name, Bibber McCoy. He's got the old Bibber
Hey,
there.
I wonder if he was part of the McCoy family. Is that the McCoy family? The Battle of the McCoy?
I was in
the McCoys, ain't it?
Yeah.
I bet that's one of the family members right there.
That's right. It's Jim Caulfield beating Johnny Long. My favorite, Chief Sanuki versus beat Nick Carter. It's an alligator beating Jill Woodworth, and Jack O'Brien beat Al Massey. Then we come up on April the 10th, or excuse me, September 4th of 1946, back at Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. It's Ray Vilmer and Al Massey beating Jim Cofield and Babe Zaharis. Jules Strongbow beat Bibber McCoy. Jack O'Brien beat a draw with Tom Mahoney, and it's Primo Canera beating my favorite star, Chief Sanuki. Then, of course, we come up with January the 24th, 1947, Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Is the Iron Man Tulin beating Jack O'Brien. Jim Caulfield beat Olaf Eckerson. The Shadow beat Laverne Baxter. And it was Don McIntyre and Johnny Long beating Tom Mahoney and Earl Wampler.
Hey, at the beginning of this, when I was doing the research for this, I thought the Shadow and Laverne Baxter, I thought Laverne might have been a woman, but that is not the truth. I thought it was a woman's match, but it's not. We'll show a photograph of Laverne Baxter in just a moment. All right, Jack.
I have a feeling we're going to be banned for that kind.
May the 10th, 1947, Tom Mahoney and Rudy Strongberg versus Nick Carter and Joe Corbett. Al Massey beat Al Galento in a wristwatch match.
Wonder what that meant.
I guess somebody put a wristwatch up.
Yes, I'm not for sure.
Leo Savage beat Jack Dillon. Jim Cofield beat Don McIntyre in a match with Strangler Ed Lewis as special referee. And then on the 16th of May, 1947, Nick Carter drew with Leo Savage. Jim Cofield versus Carlos Rodriguez. Tom Mahoney and Rudy Strongberg versus Nick Carter and Al Massey. Don McIntyre beat Ed Strangler Lewis by disqualification. Then on the 23rd of May, Jim Cofield beat Nick Carter. Tom Mahoney beat Leo Savage. Al Galento and Joe Kirkland beat Johnny Long and Tiny Oxford. Don McIntyre beat Ed Strangler Lewis.
This is probably when you look at this, Don McIntyre becomes the big star in Georgia for many years. And you can kind of see it happening in these 3 weeks here, where Strangler Lewis comes in as the special guest referee, and they do an angle out of it. And Don McIntyre and him wrestle each other, and he puts Don McIntyre over to get him over. Let's talk a little bit about Don McIntyre. Don McIntyre is among the many names from yesteryear that are forgotten with time. A classic babyface from Missouri, McIntyre achieved his greatest success in Georgia, where he was not only the top babyface for many years, but had a piece of the office as well. When we say a piece, he really had 50% of the office.
Well, that's more than a piece.
That's more than a piece.
That's
half. That's half.
Don McIntyre got over with the people in some way. He connected with them in some form or fashion that no one else could. I believe Nick Carter could have at the time been the guy booking. I'm not for sure about that, but I believe he could have been. Don McIntyre made his start in his home state as an All-American boy type with a football background, although the background was altered to suit the local crowds. Well, we know that happens a lot. He eventually headed out and applied his trade in Buffalo and Montreal, California, and Florida. But he and his brother and frequent tag team partner, Bill Red McIntyre, which evidently didn't get over as well as Don, became institutes in the Peachtree institutions in the Peachtree State. Woo. McIntyre worked on top from 1946 until 1959, battling people like Fred Blassie, Art Nelson, Kurt Von Bronner, and other despised heels over the territory's version of the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship. He held that title on approximately 20 different occasions. McIntyre was frequently held the area's tag team with his brother Red early on and Ray Gunkel later on as well. Not long after coming to Georgia, Don McIntyre was an owner of with Paul Jones. It's a sensible move, not common in that area, because when they get a top wrestler, they would give him more than a piece. And I think people would give him a piece of the territory so they would stay. And that way they knew they would be reliable for the promotion. Don McIntyre, the formula was that Don McIntyre, the top babyface, might appear on TV and hype an upcoming match, but rarely wrestle for free. If you wanted to see him in action, you needed to come to the live events. Eventually, Ray Gunkel would buy the portion of the territory from Don McIntyre, and he would become the top star. And Rodney, this is one of the last matches, July 25th, 1947, and then we'll jump to 1948 on part 3.
Right, Tom Mahoney and Babe Zaharis beat Ralph Garibaldi and Cherry Vanilla. Almost said Cherry Vanilla. Okay, no, it's the Cherry Vanilla.
I like the name Cherry Vanilla. I think that
would have been good. They could sell drinks in the. It would have been good for marketing. Johnny Long beat Joe Marsh as Al Galento beating George Thomas, and the NWA World Champion Luthez drew with Ray Vilmer. Note that this version of the NWA title was once recognized by the National Boxing Association as well as the National Wrestling Association.
When you look at this, and I noticed this, Don McIntyre becomes a huge star at this point, and they give him a piece of the territory because they know, well, if we don't give him a piece of territory, he's going to go somewhere else. Somebody's going to give him part of the territory. Paul Jones understood this guy's over. I got to keep him here. We talked about this on a booking the territories, basically, of that formula. Once 1980 hit, Georgia just forgot that formula even existed in Georgia. They did not keep a big star around. Was this smart? Paul Jones came in as a smart person. But do you believe that Morris Siegel, the Houston promoter, had something to do with sending Paul Jones to Atlanta? Because he comes from there. He comes from working for Morris Siegel in the office. So did he send him to Georgia and say, okay, you're going to start being the promoter in Atlanta?
I believe he did.
Rodney, what do you think?
It's possible. Absolutely possible. And maybe it was something that Paul Jones always wanted to do. And an opening come up in Atlanta. They said, hey, here's your opportunity.
For some reason, they get rid of the promoters change quite often. And it's always another. Now there will eventually be an independent outlaw promoter in Georgia that we'll talk about on Georgia Championship Wrestling before Georgia Championship Wrestling number 3, and we'll talk about him and who jumped ship for that as well. I want to show you a couple of pictures of some people. I believe this is the NWA World Champion Bill Wild Bill.
Wild Bill Longster.
There's a picture of him, and he was the world champion for many years there. And here's a picture of Miss Mae Young during this time period. Not what we remember her being. Mildred Burke. Here is a photograph with her world heavyweight title. And here is a picture of Herb Welch during this point in time. And we talk about the French Angel, and we know of Frank Morrell, but this was I guess the original French Angel. He was a huge star, wasn't he, Jack?
Yeah, Maurice Tillet.
I mean, huge star. I'd say just saying he was going to be there, it was going to be a sellout. But he had this look that was incredible.
And the thing about him was he had the amagdalamedia, I believe is how you say it. Same thing Andre the Giant had that made him so big. But unfortunately for Maurice, it didn't affect his stature, just his head, his hands, because he only stood 5 feet 5 inches tall.
Wow.
But he was a major attraction worldwide. He was from Europe. I don't remember Bulgaria, somewhere like that. And, became an international star and then came over here and had an amazing career, both in wrestling and did a lot of movies and television.
Huge star. I'm pretty sure sold out. I can imagine the business they did when Ed Strangler Lewis was in Atlanta, came to Atlanta after being the huge star that he was. Here is another picture. That's Johnny Long. Johnny Long during that period of time. Here is another picture of Laverne Baxter in this one. Laverne Baxter. That was another guy that I thought was actually a woman match, but he was from Boston Harp. What's that mean? That's the guy's name, ain't it?
That's his opponent.
He's facing a guy named Boston Harp.
Yeah. And after you looked at that, it's possible that you did think that's a women's match.
You know what? I did this picture, but I don't know. Is that I'm not for sure who that is now.
It says the world champion.
Would that have been? I'm not for sure who that is. I'd have to look at that later on. But here,
but I can't think who it is.
And there, again, Mae Young. Well, she was a beautiful woman, wasn't she?
Yep.
We could just keep her right there, right in front of Rodney. The whole.
Oh.
There's no way you can win with that, Rodney.
Oops. I'll just sit in the middle. That's all right.
Georgia Championship Wrestling. We'll talk more about it. We'll get into 1948, and we'll move it. We'll move pretty quickly. We'll do 48, 49, 50 pretty quickly, and as we get into the 50s, we know more about what's going on, and as it gets more into it.
Let me point out a couple of things about Ed Strangler Lewis before we get off here. This was after he had retired. He had retired in 1942, and by this time, he was legally blind.
Wow.
Still came out. I mean, he could make out, some things, but, he couldn't drive, anything like that. But in 1947, he was only doing a few things to make some money. As a referee, he probably would have been the first time, we could legitimately say that referee was blind, because he really was. But he was a huge name. So getting him to come in anywhere, even for a limited amount of time, was big. And it wasn't but just a couple of years after this that he became Lou Thesz's manager and took care of everything for Lou. And he and Lou stayed extremely close for the rest of his life. And he passed in 1966. So it was, quite a career he had.
Wow. It was, back then you could have such a long career in pro wrestling. And today, guys, just, oh, man, the stuff they do to hurt themselves makes no sense. But we will look for Georgia Championship Wrestling Part number 3 coming soon. It will take a while because as doing the trying to do all the research and find some stuff out, it takes a while. All right, Rodney, anything going on today in the professional wrestling business that we need to talk about?
We have another breaking news tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Very serious situation involving Mick Foley, as he returned briefly to Twitter to share an important message, and he shouldn't have. Do you know what his important message was?
Mm-mm.
I'm not going to say this is not a political program, but it was a political message that he had to come on Twitter to make. And I can tell you right now, I can see them running together, Mick Foley and The Rock, Moron 1 and Moron 2.
I don't even know what he's talking about, folks.
Well, Mick Foley came in to make a political statement endorsing a certain party that has run the country into the ditch.
Hey, let me ask y'all this question. Does that really hurt? Don't that just hurt Mick Foley? Because didn't he have like a huge following on there?
Yeah, I would think it would. And I see a lot of celebrities doing that same thing, and I'm thinking, where y'all going? Because you're leaving your audience behind.
Yeah, for what? It's so. I mean, I don't make. I'm a businessman, so I'm looking at a business standpoint of what this makes. It makes no sense on a business standpoint, So,
Hangman Page also quit Twitter over the same thing, but the general response from that was, "Who?"
That's true.
Same thing. I asked Rodney about it. He told me. Rodney texted me. I don't know, maybe yesterday, maybe the day before, and said that Nick Aldis, is that how you say his name? He is going to be leaving the National Wrestling Alliance. And I'm thinking, at first I thought, who is that? Like, who cares that he's leaving there? Nobody watched the crap anyway. So why do they really care? Who is he? And why should anybody care that he's leaving? I mean, I know he cares, but
I'm the only one of us that watches any of the NWA programming, and I'm almost a month and a half behind as it is, and I got to get caught up because their next pay-per-view is next Saturday, or this Saturday. But anyway, Nick he was Magnus in TNA. He was probably not the guy that should have been, or he should have been pushed to the very top levels because he's a great talent. But he has really been the forefront of the NWA promotion for years, been the NWA World's Champion, for several years. He's not currently, but he's also married to Mickie James.
I did not know this.
And Mickie had come in and put together a women's pay-per-view for them, special show. And Nick has been upset at Billy Corgan ever since then because he felt like he was disrespectful to his wife. So it's been boiling. At first, everybody kind of thought it was just part of the storyline, but apparently it's real. He really does not like his boss, and so his contract is up in January. He made a statement this week, "Hey, I'm leaving when it's up," and to reply to that, Billy Corgan removed him and made a statement that he will no longer be on any NWA shows. He's done. Now, at the same time, WWE is interested in talking to him. So
now,
well, people know who he is at that point. Yeah. If he goes.
Well, and it's smart because he's getting internet buzz right now off of it.
Yeah.
Even if nobody watches the show, they're Googling him. And the guy is in fantastic shape. He's like 6'5", 6'6", somewhere up in there, and just in fantastic shape. And if you ever watch any of his stuff, he's really good. He's a real old school type wrestler.
Well, but will that do him harm trying to go to WWE?
No, I think it would help him because that's what Triple H is looking for is guys who don't all wrestle the same. Now.
Well. Really, he should think about this because Matt Cardona, one of my favorites, as you well know, has stated that he made more money working independent in 2022 than he ever did for any year working for WWE. So this is an opportunity, obviously, for Nick to follow in the path of Mr. Cardona, who, for whatever reason, if he could have made more money, going around to all of these independent shows, why would he ever want to go back to WWE? I just don't understand that. So there's a conflict. Apparently, he tried to go there, and they said, "Matt, who you were here when?" And then they said, "No, thank you." And then the next thing you know, he's saying, "Well, I made more money just working independent than I could work for y'all anyway."
And the sad part
Moron.
is that WWE's actually wanting to hire his wife, but not him.
Oh.
I seen a video. I guess they're getting ready to. Scarlett is getting ready to return. Great little video of her. I think it must have been on SmackDown. Of her standing around. I thought that was a pretty good little video. It might have been old. I'm not for sure, but I saw bits and pieces of it on the YouTuber there. Tony Khan is staying out of the picture. I've noticed lately. Have y'all heard any news about him?
No, but I haven't watched the shows in a few weeks now. I reached my boiling point with what they're doing, and I'm not saying I might not go back and start watching again at some point, but right now that is not on my calendar.
Well, he did kind of make a news today because today he was on one of these wrestling shows, and they were asking the question, which was the best second generation wrestler, and I think one of the guys on there said Randy Savage, Paffo's son, and I forget what the other guy said. Then he came to Tony Khan, and instead of picking someone from outside of his company, he finally got smart there and picked the Hook as the best second generation wrestler. Although, I'm not sure if that's the case, but he did choose somebody that was in his company and not for somebody that was working for somebody else. I was shocked that it wasn't Cody Rhodes.
Hook is also debating whether to continue wrestling or take up a modeling career. And after watching him wrestle, I would definitely vote for the modeling career.
I've seen bits and pieces of him, and he is not his father, is he?
No, but that's exactly the gimmick they're trying to get him to do. But he's half the size of his dad. At best, he might be half the size.
Sad, it's sad. The pro wrestling business and what Tony Khan could do in the professional wrestling business.
He's made a very good acquisition. Jeff Jarrett is now over there working with him at AEW. He's over a business development.
He'll be there for 3 months, and Jeff
said this was not something that just happened overnight. He had been working on it for quite some time, and that should help.
Somebody had said to give praise to Jeff Jarrett because he had worked for WWE. He had worked for Game Changer Wrestling. He had worked, the main event of the Ric Flair retirement show, and now he is working at AEW, 4 promotions in 1 year, to which I'm thinking, so he's got fired 3 times.
Well, if he would just listen to Matt Cardona, he could get on these independent shows and make more money just working for them than working for one of these big companies.
It's not going to last there. He didn't last in WWE. I mean, he was high in that.
Even if he came in and even if he could make a difference, Tony Khan's not going to listen to him.
No, he won't listen.
I mean, when you've got the talent base of the old school guys that are there, that are in that backstage area every show, and he doesn't listen to them, he's not going to listen to Jeff.
No.
And if nothing else, Jeff could tell you, don't do that, because when I did that, it didn't work. Honestly, he has learned from his mistakes over the years. I mean, personally, I like Jeff, but he's not going to draw you money.
No.
And as a matter of fact, I have read stories where a lot of their fan base is voicing displeasure Here we go again with an older wrestler. He's not going to produce, uh, because his day was over with 20 years ago. But he's taking up TV time now for younger talent that doesn't get enough TV time as it is, and they're right about that.
Yeah.
He does. They do not know how to manage time or resources there.
Well, a lot of, and I get what you were saying there about the he can't work or whatever. He might be getting injured, but we're seeing injuries happen left and right with the current newer talent.
Oh yeah, that's
I mean,
true.
you get pushed, you're getting pushed, and here Jey Uso's got something wrong with his wrist. Now he's got to go in MRI. Logan Paul gets a big, huge push. Now he's hurt. Think about this: if they had to work on a business,
is out with a torn quad.
Yeah, so they need to figure out what it is these people are doing that's getting hurt. And I saw, I get, I salute Logan Paul for what he did, but in the end, was it worth it? That's my question. Was it worth all of what he did? And every single person, and with these internet idiots, what's his name? The great brilliant that everybody tries to please, Dave Moron Meltzer or whatever his name is. But try to prove him. They talked about so much about all this athleticism, all the stunts basically that he, but not one said that we're concerned about the injury he had to endure out of that. So it goes right back to what I was saying, what we've been saying. People do not have an emotional connection with these wrestlers. All they are is stuntmen. And if they get hurt, so what? Next, bring the next one in. And it's like watching the crash, dummies.
If you get somebody that has that connection, you'll see your ratings go way up. But they're not. There's no connections. Even though WWE's ratings are coming up as AEW's is going down, so WWE is doing something correct because their ratings are going up. Now, is it the lowest ratings of all time of wrestling history? Yes, but based on where we're at on this day, I don't take time to watch wrestling because hey. Manifest is on, and there's better things on television for me to watch that are more. I watch wrestling and tell you what's going to happen.
Well, they said that SmackDown this past said that SmackDown was back over 2 million this week as well, so that's good. And also the show that the show out of Saudi Arabia, they're saying that generates more money than WrestleMania does. That's what they were saying.
This last one did so far,
and so amazing.
Also, this is the biggest rated besides the WrestleMania as far as viewers. It was over 1 million people watched it live. But here's the thing, and this is what we have talked about so many times, that really at the end of the day, ratings are just a small part of your success. Over 40 million hits on social media from Crown Jewel this weekend. Over 40 million hits.
Yeah, you've got to know that social media is and on demand is very important in 2022 into 2023, 24 is even going to be. It's important that you have that because it's incredible.
Well,
91
honestly,
subscribers.
Yeah, and for what I saw, the Royal Rumble this coming year is going to break record.
It's already surpassed. I think WrestleMania has already sold 100,000 tickets.
And we're talking about the gross, I guess, for the third quarter, 304.6 million for WWE for that. So again, not a company in decline, not a company in decline at all.
Yeah.
And they're not going nowhere. And Mick Foley, I hate to hurt your feelings once again, but they are no competition. AEW is no competition to the WWE. I know you want to think so because someone there hurt your feelings and told you they didn't want you back there because they want people to remember you as you were and not what you have become. And that's truly the truth. And people told them for years, Mick, don't do that stuff. Ole Anderson told him, Mick, do not do that stuff. You ain't going to be able to walk. You're gonna be in pain.
That's
He
correct.
said, I'm in
It is.
pain, and I didn't do that stupid stuff.
That's right.
And everybody, our father tried to tell him. Everybody tried to tell him, don't do that. It made him money for a little bit of time, but what good was that money now that he's mostly in pain and all messed up? So.
And probably so many concussions is what led to him getting back on Twitter and making that stupid comment.
And one last bit of news I've got. We talked about the new movie that's coming out about the Von Erich family called The Iron Claw. And I can't remember what that guy's name is, Zac Efron, that's playing Kevin Von Erich. And they've released a promotional still from him actually wrestling. He's throwing a drop kick. This guy's in phenomenal shape.
Oh,
he really looks so much like Kevin that if they can keep this kind of momentum going of having people in those roles that they actually can, people can buy it off on, I think this will be a very good movie. Now, MJF has been off TV. Now, they got this big pay-per-view coming up, and he's got this big title match, and he hasn't been on TV for, I don't think he was there week before last. I don't think he was there this week. I know they said that he would be on, he would be speaking, but not wrestling tomorrow night. But what he's doing is he has gotten a role in that movie, and he's going to be playing Lance Von Erich.
What great casting!
Now, honestly, they had side-by-side pictures of them. And, physically, I mean, I knew that before I stopped watching when he first came back, I noticed that he had gotten in phenomenal shape since he'd been gone. I mean, he was always in great shape, but he's really buffed up. And so that's what this is for. He had this movie role coming up. And, but physically, as far as the body and everything, he looks a lot like the Lance Von Erich guy did, and and with enough makeup, everything he could pass.
Is this movie going to be in theaters?
I believe so.
I believe it will do good.
I hope so. It's a tragic story.
Yeah,
but it's also a huge part of our history, and I just hope they do it justice.
What's happened to the Gorgeous George movie?
Still at a standstill for whatever reason. I think they were getting ready to move forward with it at WWE because they were going to be producing it. And of course, when COVID hit, just everything stopped. And of course, now that Vince is gone, I don't know. It's probably just been put on the back burner, but hopefully it will come out. That would be another great story that needs to be told.
There's also going to be a movie on Andre in the works, is what I've heard. So a lot of great.
They're going to have Rey Mysterio play that part. It's true. I think so.
Richard Hood says, "Good evening, gentlemen."
He's such a great actor, as you know.
Doug Masters is with us, and I believe Doug Masters still does his talk show or podcast. Hello to you, Doug, and glad to hear from you. Also, we have, again, what's causing all this from Mako. Glenn Shelton is with us as well. Hello, all. And Jerry Stubbs, Mr. Perfect himself, Olympia, never got the credit he deserved as being one of the greats in this business. Yep. And I've said it before, some of my top 10 matches ever, Jerry Stubbs, Dirty White Boy against the Nightmares. There's nothing that come close to Rock and Roll Midnight. Could never come close to that. I don't care. I've seen a bunch of matches, but they never.
And let me tell you, behind the scenes, you will not meet a nicer guy.
That's right. So tremendous stuff. I've seen him. And Jerry Stubbs, Brad Armstrong. There was another group of matches that I'll put there as some of the best matches I ever saw. And we saw a lot of matches growing up. How many matches, Rodney, do you think we watched?
Oh, I don't know. I would.
Thousands?
It's probably
Thousands of them.
at minimum. Yeah.
And probably more than that. Probably more than 1,000. But Dick Slater, Wrestling 2, number 1. And then Jerry Stubbs, Dirty White Boy against.
Well, we saw Stubbs and Wrestling 2 tear the house down in the town too. I mean, they tore the house down in some of the little town in Alabama we was at. Of course, it did get Wrestling 2 his notice, but we'll not talk about that.
Yes, he did. He got his notice yesterday, the next day in Knoxville, Tennessee. I don't think even Wrestling 2 even wrestled that night. I think he came and told me he was gone. He said, "I'm gone." I had rode with him there, and he said, "No, I'm gone. I'm leaving." He said, "I just gave me the notice." He said, "Well, I had no reason for a notice. I'll just go home." He had some business at the time, putting carpet down, some kind of carpet business, because we had went back to his house so he could go and lay some carpet or help them lay some carpet because somebody wasn't going to be there, and so he had to go help them. Charles Bellflower, 1949, Atlanta Wrestling broadcast live on WQXI Radio. Fred Anderson was the announcer. And Charles, we still want to get you and Richard Hood on as we get further into this, and so that we can get your take on what was going on during that time frame. Kevin, we just got to make sure we do some type of a test to make sure that within 2 minutes you don't go off, because that happens quite often for some reason. Kevin Penley, good evening, gentlemen. Will we ever see Rodney turn face?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she speaks. I'm the most popular person on here. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Jack said he didn't know the difference. You haven't seen him as a heel yet. We've seen it, haven't we, Jack?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not a person. I can't help it.
Me and Jack has been witness to some major heel moments from Rodney throughout the years.
We usually just stand back and say, "Get him, Rodney. Get him."
That's right.
And I'm not joking.
No joke there. If it wasn't Rodney, it was Dad. So one of the two would go after people. Sports Arena on Chester Avenue, Richard Hood. And we're going to talk about that. The guy that actually built the building, promoted wrestling for a while, and eventually he allows another person to promote wrestling against Paul Jones. So it's an interesting story that's coming up. Who trained Eddie Graham? Who trained Eddie Graham? I'm not for sure.
I'm not sure. He grew up in Tennessee, is what I understand. You know, his whole thing was growing up in Tennessee. I'm going to say one of the Welches.
He was trained by Cowboy Luttrell.
Oh, okay. Well, I was not even close to. Yes.
Makes sense, because he eventually goes and buys the territory from him. So this is the question I have to ask, though. I know he starts in 1950, and we'll see that in Georgia Championship Wrestling, because he does show up in Georgia in the 1950s. And we'll see this. Some very interesting things happen in the 1950s in Georgia, and it's going to be very interesting to look back and see the things that may have happened again in the 1970s. So it's interesting how things go around circle there. The Sports Arena on Chester Avenue. Yes, I think I'd already done that one, didn't I? Wendy Harkins is with us. Wendy, how are you doing? Rick Brooks, hey guys, and all the old school wrestling fans. And I'm going to tell you what, at the beginning of this, we went way old school to the 1930s and 40s in Georgia. So actually, Oxford, Alabama, and Gaston, Alabama was a Georgia Championship Wrestling territory. They did run it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how that came about, why it came about, why it was Georgia Championship Wrestling and not Ron Fuller. It was during the time Nick Gulas. And it was during the time. So they may have had to deal with Nick Gulas prior to that, though.
Well, it could have been about TV coverage, too.
It could have been. Yeah, maybe they didn't have TV that covered there.
Yeah.
I know Georgia did. So but we talked about this. Me and Roddy talked about this. The only place that drew good money was at the amphitheater in Gaston. When we moved to the Civic Center, it didn't do as well.
Yeah,
Georgia
Coliseum.
at the Coliseum, Coliseum, it didn't do as well. At the other place, people would try to climb the walls to get in the building.
Yeah,
I don't understand what happened, and Rodney kind of explained this, and it does make sense, and you explain it to everyone else.
Well, those of you, the Gaston Coliseum was more like it was very much like the LaRondra Coliseum. It's really just a school. It's just really a gym. But anyway, the Gaston Coliseum had other wrestling in that building, and I think it went through refurbishing or renovation, and then Georgia Championship Wrestling goes in there. But Dad had always said that through wrestling, you do not want to be in the same building as somebody else, because if they have done bad wrestling, people will equate that bad wrestling to yours as well. And then from what I understand, no other wrestling went into the amphitheater at the time. So when they switched over and went to the luxurious Gadsden Coliseum, it never really drew as well as it did at the amphitheater.
The amphitheater was great business.
Oh my goodness. What an atmosphere. What an atmosphere.
A couple times, though, that was another place that Mass Superstar really never showed up. It was Kurt Von Hess. This is different.
That is true. And well, and they had some substitutions as well. I think seems like Ole was on the card. Somebody dropped out, and they sent Abdullah, and was Abdullah against Ole for the main event. Gadsden.
So Oxford, Alabama, at that point in time was doing very good. But Nick Gulas, that started at Nick Gulas' time. And the reason I say that started during the Nick Gulas' time, because the first time it was ever run, the Freebirds was on the card against Randy Barber. And who was the other guy? I can't remember the other guy's name. But the people went nuts over that match. And Tommy Rich and Ole Anderson was the main event. And that was right after they cut Tommy Rich's hair. And they were fighting over those scissors, and tremendous stuff. People going nuts. And I think that was 1979, I believe. No, it could have been 1978, but I think it was 79 because
the Civic Center in Oxford. That was another hopping place.
Took place in 78.
All right, so that was probably 1978, and tremendous car. I mean, that place was packed. That place was packed, ready to wrestle. Good evening, guys. Ready for a great show from David Bice. Kurt, how are you doing? Good to see you, Kurt. Mickey Mayfield. Wonder why no one in the Joes family wanted to keep control of Georgia Championship Wrestling after Paul's death. Well, I think he was around until he just disappeared in 1979, but he still had his percentage. So I don't know why nobody from that family wanted to have anything to do with it. You know, maybe they just seen what it did to him. Maybe he wasn't a very nice person or something. I don't know.
Maybe he didn't like his family.
Well, that's the reason you give him the percentage of the territory. Yeah. Anybody's run wrestling. I shouldn't say that. That's it was good. He's had his good times and bad times. Michael Barr, hello. How you doing? Michael sent me some great pictures. I'll have to share them next week.
Okay.
Great photographs opposite. Also, Richard Hood shared a photograph that was took in Athens, Georgia, at the J&J Center. It has Black Atlas on it, Wrestling 2 against Ole and Gene Anderson, and in the corner, Ronnie West is in the match. And I'll have to share that photograph as well. Did you get that picture, Jack?
I did.
Tremendous photograph. That's a tremendous photograph. And I thanked him so much for getting that. And I asked him, do you think the guy that had him has more? Because I'd love to see him. Pictures that's been lost throughout the years. So it'd be, because Gene Gordon had to have thousands of pictures. And what I have heard is the family just threw away all those photographs and stuff that he had.
Oh my goodness.
I would love to just have a book with all those.
Yeah. The thing. The only angle I remember from Channel 11 Atlanta was the red and blue mask angle with Kaniski and Dory Funk Jr.? I don't remember this. We're
Well,
going to have to. You have to give us more information on this.
yeah. Well, we when wrestling was on Channel 11 in Atlanta, we wasn't there. That I remember.
No. Tough names to pronounce there.
Yeah.
That's. You should see the Andre the Giant one that we did. that was bad. Seen two great shows this past weekend. Going to two more this coming weekend. I saw that you were at a couple of the shows. What year would Charlie Smith have started refereeing? I believe in the 60s, right?
I'm pretty sure that's right.
And we'll talk about it once he gets there. We'll talk about him starting to referee, and I'm pretty sure it was Ray Gunkel that was there that brought him in as a referee. So, Carl Smith, greetings from the Mid-South. David Bice, do you have any cards from Harry Thornton Chattanooga? Yes, we have put a couple actually on Facebook. Leaping Lanny Poffo was on one of them in the main event against the world heavyweight champion Harley Race. And somebody asked him if that was his father's territory, Lanny Poffo. He said, no, that Nick Goulas promoted that. And then also we had a couple of when Dick Slater, Stan Hansen was the main event for the Georgia Heavyweight Championship in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Special dispensation by the National Wrestling Alliance, the Georgia Heavyweight Championship in Tennessee. They did that a lot with the Alabama title in Tennessee as well.
Hey, I have to ask this question. Do you think that those people like Stan Hansen, Dick Slater, and Chattanooga at the time, should they have been the semi-main event and not the main event? I mean, am I wrong about this, or because didn't it make their wrestlers look like they wasn't main event material?
Yeah, you're kind of right. Yeah. But what if people came there just to see Slater and Stan Hansen, and you put your guys on the main event, and then after the Slater and Stan got finished, everybody else got up and left?
Well, that's true. That's happened today in wrestling. So
I mean, I understand why they did it, because that match happened right after Slater lost the title to Stan Hansen. That was pretty much a return match.
I will tell you, David, I have all the matches, all the cards from January 1970 until the time Nick Goulas quit, and I will share those with you at some point as well. But I have it from January 1970. All the way until the 1979, sometime in 1979, 1980. That's the last card. And I'll share those cards and kind of show you a little bit of stuff that happened within each week. I've actually got results for those. All right, let's see. Victor Nash is with us. He said, wowie, you found me. Victor Nash also said, hello, everyone. Hope all is well. Kevin Penley, is Nick Carter the one with the bear or Nick Roberts? No, I don't think I don't think Nick Carter did, because he booked for the guy in Alabama as well. Whatever that guy's now, I can't remember the guy's name. We talked about it on the first Georgia Championship Wrestling thing, but he was their booker. That's the reason I'm kind of leaning toward, was he actually booking for Paul Jones as well? I mean, I don't know. I know he goes from there to there, so I'm figuring he was a booker, but that's not the one with the bear. I'm pretty sure. I think Roy Welch had the bear at the time, didn't he? Maybe during this time period. I'm guessing.
I'm still wondering who had the alligator.
Hey, you know what? Dad was in Chattanooga, and he said it was the winter time. It was really cold out there. It snowed and everything. They left that alligator outside, and he said the guy goes and gets it, and he comes back and he looks all white. And Dad said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" He said, "Well," he says, "Is it cold out?" He said, "Yeah, it's cold out there." And you know why I know it's really cold? Because that alligator ain't alive no more. That alligator is dead. And they said that he took that thing. He said, what we're going to do? He says, people come pay to see this. And Nagula said, boy, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to, he said, well, I'll take care. He come out there and he'd move that thing around. He got in the ring and rolled around with it, opened his mouth up like it was going. He said Dad said he had one heck of a match with that Dad. Probably better if he would have not been alive. And he said that finally he beat him and then carried it all the way out. And he Dad said it was the craziest thing he had ever seen. He wrestled that dead alligator right there in Chattanooga.
My goodness.
That's a horrible, horrible story, but it was true. Where were most of the 40s and 50s territories located? There really wasn't a lot of territories until the 40s and 50s, and mostly the 50s.
It was, each bigger city usually had their own promoters. And even back then, before the NWA, they still had a troublesome working relationship. It was difficult to get them to work together, and a lot of backstabbing going on, but they still did work together, and exchanged a few talents, had a few of the world champions, and ultimately they all agreed, with National Wrestling Alliance to combine and have one. But even then, that's the reason you had people like Lou Thesz as the champion, because a lot of these promoters would think, well, we'll bring him in and we'll just have one of our guys beat him, then we can have the world championship. And that's why you took Lou, who was not going to be beat.
No, nobody was going to beat Lou Thesz. And the thing about during those times, even when there was a National Wrestling Alliance, there were problems, and we will talk about it. Probably not on Georgia Champion Wrestling Part 3, but Part 4 we'll talk about a problem that happens between Paul Jones and Sam Muchnick that becomes a huge, huge problem between the two. And really, Sam Muchnick was in the wrong, and then Paul Jones just said, "Well, all right, you thought you did well. Here you go. Hold my beer. I'm fixing to do even one even bigger than you did." So, and what could he say? Brian Young said, "Hey, look at that Herb Welch picture. It's hilarious. Look at it again. It's censored. That was just his name over top of it, wasn't it? Wasn't like he was
Put it back up there. Put it back up there and let's see what he's talking about.
See. This picture right here.
Yes, it was censored.
Lord.
Only Brian could think of that.
It was censored. Yes, he was correct.
Hey, Charles Bellflower said the Champion U show was Whipper Billy Watts.
That is right. And I was looking back through because we did a brilliant show of the World Champions while you were going on vacation once, and I was looking through. There was no picture, so that must have been another World Champion they had.
Hey, I will be gone. I'll be gone in January.
Yes,
for a while, and then I'll be gone in April. Well, so I just wanted to go ahead and let y'all know it now, so you and y'all.
We know. Yeah, we know.
Hey,
we know.
Did you disappear to? Did you disappear?
When he was,
I did behind. That's right.
Jeff said, "Are you guys doing a Mae Young Rodney 2022?" Michael Barr, the Welch family of wrestlers began in the 50s. Many great wrestlers back in that era. And before the Welches, they were tag team wrestling. So I want everybody to realize that. Even though you might be told otherwise, that was tag team wrestling before them. Maybe not Angles. I'm not for sure about that. So my birthday is Sunday. Well, happy birthday, Wendy. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. That's the best we can do is singing around here. Let's see, Nick. How do you say that name? Aldous and Tim Storm can work. Yeah, I'm not discrediting that they can work because I have seen them work. I'm just thinking how many people know who they are. I mean, I think a very small percentage of the people know who these people are. And
well, I know that Billy is trying to open a door and to doing business with WWE. And, you know, they're already doing business with other promotions to put on the Peacock. So maybe, you know, that would work out for them. I hope it does.
Let's see. Glenn Allen Shelton said, happy birthday to you, Wendy. Victor Nash also. Kevin Penley. So a lot of happy birthday wishes to you, Wendy. Been enjoying the Vice program. Tales of the Territories. I've only watched the one. Have you watched the other ones, Jack?
Yes, and the only one you don't need a shovel for so far is the Calgary.
Yeah, I just saw the Stampede was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was very good. I thought they stayed very true. And probably for a lot, if you don't watch shoot interviews, it'll be the first time you actually get to hear Abdullah the Butcher actually speak.
Oh.
Reports are that the investigation of Vince McMahon is over. I heard that. He may be back. Who knows?
They have. They also said that he's not coming back. He's fully into retirement. I saw a picture of him out with some mystery woman the other night, and he's dyed his hair dark to make him look, 80 instead of 82.
Yeah. Nice Cardonian impersonation, Rodney, from Kevin Penley.
Thank you.
Let's see. Michael Barr said, right, Jack, it gets boring watching wrestling where all the wrestlers wrestle the same, but in the same moves instead of flying off the ropes, keep it more in the ring. Yeah, especially if everybody's going to do it.
And I will say, what I'm enjoying about WWE right now is they're actually trying to develop some characters. They're trying to do some real storylines that are, not the same old kind of stuff. But the matches themselves have not changed a lot. So I will watch those parts that interest me. But the majority of it, I'm looking at travel videos on my tablet. So.
When the EVPs return to AEW, I'm done watching it from Kevin Penley. I think that's going to happen to them.
They've already advertised it, and they're all throwing CM Punk under the bus, which I think could be from a legal standpoint, maybe not the thing to do.
Yeah,
because he's very vindictive, and he's got a history of winning cases against wrestling promotions.
Yeah, and he'll probably win this, and he will win whatever he does. He will win this one, and he will be paid well for it.
He's going to walk away with a full contract paid off, and I'm sure several million more dollars stuck in his back pocket just to let it go.
I was really impressed with Logan Paul's match against Roman Reigns from Wendy Harkins. Jeff Dobbs, Tony Khan just wants to get WWE ideas from Jeff Jarrett. I don't know that Jeff Jarrett even knew any of the ideas.
He's not in that loop. I
didn't think he was, because 4 promotions in 1 year means 3 promotions give him the boot. Michael Barr. Right, Rodney, it's because of his high-flying acts in today's wrestling. They need to quit doing those dangerous stunts. And they are stunts.
Oh yeah, it was and honestly, he went through that match. They went through that step by step with him, so that everything that was in that match was approved. So it does fall on the company injury he sustained.
Jeff said R-Truth shouldn't even be wrestling anymore. That's a dumb injury. I'm not even sure what he was. It
wasn't a big move that he did. I actually watched the match, but. He's not a young guy anymore. And they've established him for the last 15 years as doing more comedy stuff, which, if you've got one guy in the company doing comedy, that's okay. I don't like everybody in the company doing comedy. But, he had a good role. He shouldn't be asked. I agree. He should not be asked to go out there and perform those matches, even though he's physically able to do that. But as you get older, injuries like this happen. I not Kevin Nash, but I almost tore a quad picking up a piece of paper today. So.
Evening, guys. I'm so happy Bray Wyatt is back. The Uncle Howdy gimmick to me is really cool and has me watching SmackDown again. I enjoy the stuff with Bray. I think he does. I think he does a good job of it. Now I don't know where they're going with it, but I enjoy it. Bray is putting butts in the seats. Michael Barr, but understand the sports social media can be a big influence. It can also hurt sports as well. I will agree with that. Let's see. Mick Foley paid a price. Yes, he did. Brent almost spit his water out. Triple H out there. MJF as Lance from Ricky. Heck, I am in pain, and I know I didn't do 1/4 of what Ole did, and I was always getting yelled at for wanting to get color. Not in front of 100 people. Why? Don't waste it. It doesn't mean anything, and that is the truth. Mr. Stubbs was awesome. His matches with Brad Armstrong were classics. Let's see. Michael Barr, if Jerry Stubbs is still on, I would have been the biggest dream to wrestle against him back in the day. Jerry was a great wrestler. He was a tremendous wrestler. And we're going to go through some real quick because I just noticed what time it was. I did not notice it was 8:41 already. Let's see if we can go through Tim Edwards. Let's see. Well, I'm going to go past all the political stuff. Guys, I believe they started wrestling on Channel 17 in 1972. I believe that is true. I believe that I had read that, Richard. I believe that's true. Charlie Smith said he started in 1953 in Eastman, Georgia. So that's and I'm just going through a couple here to make sure. Brian Young said January. Okay, I'll clear my calendar for you, Rodney. I'll co-host with you.
Come on over. Come on over.
That's right. There you go.
We'll actually have a professional show on here.
I don't know how I can take that, Jack. All right, folks. We are going to go over right now. We're going to continue our talking of territories. We're going to talk about Ole Anderson and the turn that he did in 1979, I think, against Ernie Ladd. And we're going to talk about that on our supporter channel. We're going to be on there for about 30 minutes. So if you'd like to come over there, you become a supporter, $2.99 a month. We talk about stuff that we do not talk about here. And sometimes we have to censor Rodney on here anyway. So there we don't censor him. So he's wide open because it is deleted after the show. Nothing stays what we're talking about. So you come over.
I'm not sure. I never said anything that I don't want anybody to hear. Never.
Sometimes I do.
I would never say anything like that.
All right. So go over there if you want to. Over there.
Go over there. Go over there. If you want to hear some more, go over there.
You can go to our Facebook page. You can hit the subscribe or support or something like that. They change it. Facebook changes it on a daily basis. Whatever it says at top up there, the support, subscribe. $2.99 a month. Get you every Monday when we come on. We come on there just for the supporters. Just for the supporters. And right now, I think there's only about 20 or 30 of us. And we really get in there and talk so much trash. All right. Jack, anything we need to talk about before we leave?
Happy Veterans Day to everybody. Y'all be safe. Have a good time.
Rodney?
Once again, with some update, some breaking news, Braun Strowman has upset everyone over his flippy floppy comment.
We'll talk about the flippy floppy comment on our supporter channel.
And he's right. He's right.
He is. All right, we'll go back. We'll talk about that later on. Thank you so much for being a part of Pro Wrestling Inside Now. This week alone on Facebook, 2,200 new insiders. 2,200. Thank you so much. 103 new people on our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Let's keep wrestling alive. Let everybody know about it. Let them know about Pro Wrestling Inside Now. We just have fun here. We're just here to have fun and relive the old days of professional wrestling. Thank you so much, and we'll see everybody next week right here on Pro Wrestling Inside Now.